Thousands of federal workers could lose their jobs as a government shutdown approaches. President Donald Trump's White House, through Russell Vought at the OMB, told agencies to use the shutdown to slash staff. Park rangers and other workers say they're being used as chess pieces, while unions argue employees deserve respect, not layoffs. Democrats, led by Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, are pushing back hard, refusing to pass a bill unless cuts to Medicaid, public broadcasting, and foreign aid are reversed. Federal workers, veterans, caregivers, and law enforcement officers now face massive uncertainty. Let's take a look at some reactions to this news.
Tomorrow, the largest mass exodus from federal employment that has ever taken place in the history of the United States will take place, when an estimated 120,000 individuals who took Donald Trump and Republicans' deferred resignation programs to escape hostile work environments leave federal service. This will coincide with the largest brain drain ever in the history of the United States federal service. U.S. citizens will, maybe not immediately, but for sure within the next 6 months to a year, begin to see that federal organizations are faltering. And that is by design. Now, if you're one of these individuals who took the deferred resignation program, and at the time you took it, you believed it was the right choice, just know that it was. Know that you made the choice that was right for you based upon the information you had at that time. And there's many of us, myself included, who are federal employee adjacent, federal workforce adjacent. And we're going to miss you. And we know the work you put in. We know the hard work that you did every single day. And that's not going to be easily forgotten by those of us that understand how much you cared about your job, about your customers, about your veterans, about the people you took care of, the American citizens who might not even know that you exist. And that means you were doing your job well. If you took a deferred resignation and tomorrow is your last day in federal service, just know that your time is appreciated, that I, for one, appreciate you, and you're going to be missed by coworkers and by people who didn't even know you existed, especially when things start to fall apart. But things will get better for you. It is a hostile work environment out there right now. It's hard finding jobs. I understand that. But hopefully you'll never again used as a political pawn. Hopefully you no longer have to worry about a new president making you so sick your hair begins to fall out. Hopefully you never have to worry about Congress getting rid of your program and you losing your job that way. I hope that the decisions that you made were the best ones for you and that you find the peace and happiness that you deserve. Because America's going to miss you, and tomorrow begins the biggest brain drain in the history of this country. And you'll be missed. And we love you. Good night.
Okay, so last night, the federal government instructed agencies to start preparing plans to fire federal employees in the case of a government shutdown. This is coming just days before federal funding runs out, and it's pretty different than the way federal agencies approach this stuff around government shutdowns in the past. Usually, federal agencies prepare plans for how they would function when funding runs out, and usually that involves keeping people working who do essential functions for life and for government property, and temporarily furloughing people who do not do that kind of work. And then at the end of the government shutdown, people are put back into their jobs even though they've had to go without pay for a little while. But what's different about this time is the administration is saying that federal agencies should permanently fire people, whether they were furloughed or not, unless their program was explicitly funded under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, for example, that put money into border and defense, or if it aligns with Trump's policies. So this is pretty clearly intended to put additional pressure on Democrats who are in this position where they're deciding whether to go along with a Republican funding patch that would keep the government open through the end of November. Democrats say they need to use this moment to put pressure on Republicans to do something on healthcare, and they say they're not intimidated by this OMB memo. There's a few days left in the fiscal year, so we'll see if anything changes.
So there's a whole lot of layoffs happening, and if you've recently been laid off, I feel for you, especially folks that are making 50 to 120,000. You guys are getting hit first because a lot of your jobs are office jobs, anything on the computer, that shit's getting wiped out right away. A lot of blue collar jobs, they assume they're safe, electricians, plumbers, etc. they're gonna be fucking gone too, because the robotics are catching up like within the next 3 to 4 years tops. So get ready for UBI, social scores. It's gonna get crazy out here, and you gotta wonder what they're basing those social scores and your UBI on. But just a heads up, no job is safe. It doesn't matter what you do. Anyway, love and peace.
We are just a few hours away from a government shutdown, so what can you expect if it actually happens this time? And it looks like it will. First, you have to understand that a government shutdown is not random. It's scheduled, and if it happens, it doesn't mean the U.S. government is broke, and it doesn't mean the U.S. government has no money. The U.S. government has plenty of money. If the government shuts down, it means Congress has failed to do the one job that it has. See, the U.S. government runs on a fiscal calendar from October 1st through September 30th. And every single year, it is Congress's job to find a way to fund the government before the fiscal year ends. That means it's Congress's job to figure out how much money each department and agency will get in their budget and figure out which priorities will and will not be funded. And if September 30th comes around and there is no spending plan approved by both the House and the Senate and signed by the president, no government agencies or departments get their budget allotment, so they don't have money to operate. Then they have to close, and ultimately the government shuts down. And tomorrow is September 30th, and we are not even in the ballpark of a deal to keep the government open. Okay, so now that you know how government shutdowns happen, let's talk about what happens when the government shuts down. During a shutdown, the federal government must stop all non-essential functions until Congress passes a spending bill. Each agency and department determines what work is essential and what is not. And in this Trump administration, the executive branch also has a big say. The federal workers who are considered non-essential will be furloughed, and agencies and departments that are considered non-essential will close. Now, instead of running down a list of what is considered non-essential and will be shutting down, because it's a pretty long list, it's actually much easier to tell you what is considered essential and will be staying open. So Social Security, Medicare, veterans benefits, military operations, law enforcement, U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, ICE, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, and Air Traffic Control, all those departments will stay open. However, depending on how long the shutdown lasts, the people who work at those departments and agencies may have to go to work without pay. The longer the shutdown lasts, the worse things get. Almost immediately after a government shutdown, the national parks will close. So if you have a trip planned to see one of our beautiful national parks in the next week or so, you may want to reschedule. And if the shutdown lasts more than a few days, passport processing could slow down or stop. Federal courts, including immigration courts, could start postponing or canceling hearings. And some federal government contractors may not get paid. Now, your payments from Social Security, Disability, Medicare, Medicaid, those will all still be processed, and the post office will stay open. However, some of the federal employees who work at those places are considered non-essential. So if you are looking to get help at those places, or you want to perhaps process a new disability or Social Security claim, or if you have questions about your existing benefits, getting those answers will become more difficult the longer the shutdown lasts. The White House used to keep a department-by-department list of shutdown plans, but now this Trump administration says each agency and department will post their own shutdown plans, which I will email as many of them to you as I can in tonight's Facts HQ email, so make sure you sign yourself up. The last time the U.S. government shut down was in 2018 and 2019 during the first Trump administration. Back then, the government shut down for 35 days. That was the longest shutdown in 40 years. The standoff in Congress back then was over Trump's demand for almost $6 billion to fund his border wall project. Lawmakers in the House and the Senate fought over that money for 35 days. But the shutdown actually cost the American economy billions of dollars. And after 5 weeks, then President Trump, during his first term, ultimately signed a spending plan that did not include the funding for his border wall. Now, these days, the issues between Democrats and Republicans are much different. But in the end, Republicans right now control the House, the Senate, and the White House. So it is on them to keep the government open. And because of the rules of the Senate, coming up with a funding plan must be negotiated with Democrats, because Republicans do not have the 60 votes necessary to pass the types of spending plans that President Trump wants on their own.
figured out Trump's little secret, and he's going to try to pull it off right in front of us. Now, I don't know if he's going to let the government shut down, but if he does, I know he's not going to lose a wink of sleep over it, because the Bureau of Labor Statistics, he just released a 73-page report on what they'll do if the government shuts down. And in that 73-page report was the news that they will not release a September jobs report on Friday if the government is shut down. Also won't release weekly unemployment claims. And in the middle of October, if the government's still shut down, they won't release inflation data either. And on top of that, they're going to stop collecting data from employers the whole time, which would virtually guarantee October's report is corrupted and incomplete, not unlike every sentence out of Trump's mouth. And the timing really couldn't be better, because a major job market researcher just announced that seasonal hiring is the lowest it's been since 2009, which, if you recall, was a catastrophic recession. And of course, everyone knows the job market is trash because of Donald Trump's tariffs and the nonstop chaos in the economy, when all employers want is stability. But Trump wants to hide from it, because if you don't count it, it isn't real. Just like back in 2020, when a whole ship full of passengers who were sick desperately needed a dock so that the passengers could find a hospital. Trump didn't want him to dock here, not because he was worried about getting doctors sick, but because he didn't want to count 14 cases. Because really, when it comes down to it, that is all we are to people like Trump. Numbers. If we're good, he claims them, and if they're bad, he either hides from it or blames us for it. Unfortunately for Trump, because we live in the real world, not in mansions with golden ballrooms, we don't need the BLS to tell us it's terrible. All we have to do is ask ourselves one question. Is Trump still the president? We see you, Donald, and we'll see you at the midterms.
They're showing us what's going to happen before it happens. They are preparing for a mass shutdown and layoff, okay? They have already sent agencies notifications and said, when we shut down this time, people aren't going on furlough, they're being fired. And they are not coming back. They are letting people know ahead of time. They want thousands of jobs cut in the government, which could be a good thing. And I work for the government. I'm working right now. Well, not really working because I work for the government, but if it shuts down, it's going to last a little while. And whatever happens is going to be way more permanent than it usually is. It's not going to be a shutdown for a couple of days and they pass something in the month and then we just keep chugging along. Things are about to change. Jobs are going to get cut. People are going to get fired. And those are going to be taken over by different agencies, by AI. Because we don't need certain jobs. We just don't.
So Congress has decided to play chicken once again with the yearly spending or budget. And now the White House is using it as an excuse to threaten mass layoffs of federal workers again. So let's talk about why that's not just bad policy. It's also dangerous for everyday Americans. Now, here's the deal. We've heard about this before. It happens every year. So when Congress doesn't pass full funding, they pass what's called a continuing resolution, or we call it CR for short. And it's just basically to hold you over, to keep the lights on. And what it is primarily is like they're taking their most essential taskers or programs, and they kind of put those as a priority to make sure that everything keeps going. But this year, instead of just riding out the storm, the administration is basically stating if the government shuts down, then they're not just going to furlough people. They're going to use this reduction in workforce plan that Trump has put together to force people out. So you're literally trying to bully people. You're trying to bully the whole Congress as a collective to buy into this new spending, which does not work for everyone. Oh well, so much for going back and forth and trying to come to a peaceful resolution. So why is this harmful? Now think about it. Instead of solving the budget mess like they normally do, you have a few days off. It may come to a furlough, may not. They are threatening people's livelihoods. So these are not just like faceless bureaucrats. They are the people who process veterans' benefits. They inspect food safety. They track environmental hazards. They make sure that planes fly safely. And yes, they keep the economy moving. So if you gut out these essential, these essential positions through funding, then you gut out the services literally that Americans depend on for your own selfish greed. So now here's the kicker. The timing isn't necessarily a coincidence, because they were talking about a reduction in workforce when we did the DRP a long time ago. So the rifts come, but using them as part of the continuing resolution tactic to get your budget passed is really shitty. It's almost like it's extortion. So if the goal is to optimize the government, then invest in better training, modern systems, and smarter processes. You don't slash the workforce and call it reform in an effort to try to get your way across. Cutting thousands of jobs doesn't necessarily save taxpayers money. It literally just shifts the responsibility of finance onto the communities when the services vanish, or even like private contractors end up charging more. So somebody makes it up on the end. So letting federal workers go, it's not saving you any money. So the next time you hear reduction in workforce, remember what this really means. It's fewer protections. It's going to be longer processing time for you to get a resolution, fewer services. Families can be put at risk just to score political points. And we really need a government right now that invests in the people, not one that treats workers like bargaining chips. And that's exactly what's happening. So I'm wondering, what do you think? Do you think Congress should keep playing the shutdown roulette with people's jobs? Let me know what you think.